It all comes down to relationships. We talked a bit about this earlier today, but we want to take a deeper dive with this panel. Please welcome Grace Dillon, Executive Director, Revenue, Finance, and Public Integrity Portfolio in ITS. Joe Popkin, Executive Deputy Commissioner in the Division of Criminal Justice Services. And Jim Richburg, Public Sector CISO and VP of Information Security for Fortinet. Panel, it is all yours.
Thank you. Anybody need a quick stretch? Anyone? We all had cookies and quick stretch. Everybody stand up for just a minute. So you're still with us? Stay with us? Okay. Good. Feels good, right? We all had that vendor candy? Okay, good. All right, here we go. Okay, so when someone from the advisory board came to me and said, you know, we have this opportunity for you to speak, I said, sure. Anyone who knows me knows I just jump right in. Yes, I'll speak. Great, that sounds great. I said, what do you want me to talk about? And they said, well, we've got one here about relationships. And I said, well, I just got divorced again. But if you want me to, I will. And she said, no, your relationships with the agencies. And I said, oh, all right, that one I can do. So here we are. So when I started my career in IT, I heard a lot of, and I took note of, the business saying, IT needs to learn about the business, right? We used to hear about this all the time. IT needs to learn more about the business. And then over time, I started to say, hey, wait a minute, the business needs to learn about IT, right? I mean, that's fair. I think we've learned about you. You need to learn a little bit about us. And we've heard IT needs a stronger seat at the table. Well, it seems we have a seat at the table now. I've lived on that bridge between IT and the business for a long time, and IT is taken more seriously now, right? We have a CIO, right? We got the C finally, so that's exciting. But we have to be careful what we wish for a little bit, don't we? What do we do with that seat? What do we do now? We're at the table, so what do we do? Success as an IT leader really depends on effective communication. I love these conferences. I'm a big fan of conferences. Everybody knows that. I get all excited, you know, conferences coming, who's going, you know. It's exciting. I haven't seen people in a long time, especially this year, right? And the very last one, we had a session about your own personal brand and building what is your mission statement. So I went back to my team at the time. A couple of them are here today. And we said, all right, we're going to do an exercise. We're going to get together and everybody come up with words. What do you want to do? How are we going to build our mission for our little team here? And we thought about it, and I gave them a worksheet, and it was really exciting. And we had dozens of words on the board. And everybody came with what they thought was the most important. I had what I thought was most important, and I was going to guide them right into the direction I wanted them to go, right? And that didn't work at all. And what it came down to was communication. Everybody agreed that the most important thing was communication up, communication down. We needed to communicate better. We needed to be communicated to more. Things like that. So communication, right? Honest communication. Our success as IT leaders really depends on it. So brief introductions. Who are we? How did we get here, this panel? My name is Grace Dillon. I'm the ITS Executive Director for the Revenue, Finance, and Public Integrity Portfolio, which sounds really important, doesn't it? But it just means that I have a group of agencies that I support with like business mission. Many revolving around money, right? The Department of Tax and Finance, Tax Appeals, the New York State Gaming Commission. And it's just basically, in a nutshell, my job to make sure with my team that their IT needs are met. So that's my experience, why I'm here, and to talk about that relationship building with my agencies. So Joe, you want to tell us a little bit about who you are and why you're here?
Sure. Thanks so much. So I'm Joe Popkin, Executive Deputy Commissioner at DCJS, the Division of Criminal Justice Services, and we're a multifunction support agency for all aspects of the criminal justice system, everything from alternatives to incarceration on the front end, through prosecutors, defenders. We manage the state's criminal history system, which has millions of records in it, and I came here after being in the governor's office for 7.5 years, and worked on a lot of the COVID response too. So ITS is one of my favorite agencies. So, Jim?
That's why he's here. Jim?
So I'm Jim Information Security Officer for the public sector at Fortinet. Fortinet's a big enough company with a global operating footprint that they brought in seasoned executives to work with key vertical markets. And since I had spent 34 years in the federal government, it made sense to have me do federal, state, local, and key international relationships for the company. So what did I do in the federal government? Well, I spent 34 years in the intelligence community, the first 20 years at CIA. I could tell you all sorts of wonderful stories, and then I'd have to say, let's take that group picture and hold up the fun device, and then we'd lose the day. But after 9/11, we created this thing called a Director of National Intelligence, and I became the National Intelligence Manager for Cyber. So my job was organizing what the 17 agencies of the U.S. intelligence community, the 100,000 men and women in that, were doing on cyber, setting the strategy, setting the priorities. So it was people, process, technology, but it was really knit together by relationships.
Absolutely. So Joe, you're a business partner. You're not my business partner, but you're a business partner with ITS. How is your agency's relationship with ITS, and do you have any tips for IT leadership to maintain that collaborative relationship?
Yeah, so, I would say where we are now is seamless, and I know Jeff's in the audience, so I have to give him a shout out. But we have great collaboration with our ITS partner. But I will say it's been a labor of love, right? It started from a place of, real, not animosity, but ITS was created for historical context by, taking people from other agencies and putting them together to create a new agency. So DCJS had 150 employees who were doing IT work and another 100 contractors. And overnight, the people that you were getting lunch with, you're not getting lunch with anymore. They're underneath a new umbrella. So it started from, that point, which was contentious, and we had to build a new relationship. How do we think about our capabilities? What do you own? What do we own? And now we're at a place where our operations are seamless, and we have a fantastic relationship on everything from end user services, getting cell phones and laptops, all the way through managing complex databases that make our criminal justice system work. So I would say it's been a labor of love, but like any good story and any good relationships, it has its ups and downs, and we're at our peak right now.
That's great to hear. Is there anything you would want to say to technical managers?
Yeah, I think what's important and why Jeff and the public safety portfolio have succeeded in this relationship is, like talking to a family member during a get-together. Everyone wants to talk about the gadget, the solution, like, oh, hey, check out my new phone. I got the next iPhone. And I know IT can sometimes be enamored with the tools, the technology, what it can do, but that removes the problem from the equation. So instead of being solution-centered, be problem-centered. Put yourself in the business owner role to say, okay, I want to understand this problem, and many, many times, I need actually the least intensive tool. I need something that just gets the job done. And ITS, and particularly our portfolio, has been great at being like, okay, this is the off-the-shelf thing that we have that gets you 85% of the way there, and we'll do the rest. So I would switch the problem-solution, kind of paradigm a little bit.
Yeah, that's great. From my perspective on the technical side of the bridge, right, I would say keep it simple. How do we build those relationships in a more productive, better way? Lee from Disney earlier talked about answering the phone and pretending it was your mother. I'm going to go with my father instead of my mother. I'll pretend that it's my father. I might have a little bit of a better tone when I answer the phone, but whatever works for you, So my advice always is, if you want them to pick up the phone when you call them, you need to pick up the phone when they call you. You see a name come across your phone, you go, ugh. It's them from fill in the blank agency, or them from even, within your own organization, right? Oh, it's them again. Well, if you need them sometimes, they need you now, so you need to be there for them, right? It's a two-way street to build a relationship. Also, this is really simple, but very true. Just like the late, great Patrick Swayze said in the movie Roadhouse, just be nice. Right? Just be nice. We talked a lot about attitude today, which I really liked. And it just helps just to have a good, positive spirit. Hey, what's going on today? What can I do for you? How can I help you? If you're just a little nicer to them, they're going to be a little more receptive when you call, right? They're going to be more likely to pick up the phone if you're nice to them when you have those exchanges with people and get to know people. I would also say in this time of this virtual world that we've been living in for the past couple of years, show your face, right? We don't always want to put the camera on. I know we have vendors giving out little covers for the cameras, and that was a big hit, and everybody get your little cover for the camera. I say take the cover off, right? Show your face, do your hair, throw on a shirt. You can leave the sweatpants on. That's okay. They won't even know. But I have customers that I have never met. You know, the turnover that we've talked about before, right? We've supported different agencies. There are different people coming and going, and it's good to see when their eyes roll or when they smile or what makes them happy, right? When do they shift in the seat? Oh no, she's talking about that again, right? So you can adjust your approach to build that relationship better moving forward. It's also important to manage expectations, right? If something's going to be bad, if it's going to be expensive, if it might not go well, if you think it's going to cause an impact, just say so. Say so up front. Set those expectations. Say, you know, we're doing the best we can. We're working really hard. I don't know, say, for example, if they're pulling this one out of the air, might be an issue with authentication. Just say we're working on it. You know, we want to just let you know that we have the best and the brightest on it. We're going to be working on it 24/7, and it's a little bumpy right now, but we're going to get there because we know this service is important to you, right? To set those expectations. Someone mentioned earlier, I think it might have been Phil, about acronyms. You know, what we did when we formed ITS was we took 4,000 plus of the left brain thinkers in New York State and put us all in one agency. And man, you know, sometimes we have a challenge with things just like email. Read the thread before you forward it, right? What's way down at the bottom that we might not want the customer to see? Right? We don't need them to see that Bob fat-fingered something, right? Transparency, yes, but it doesn't mean we have to air our dirty laundry, right? Think it through. Maybe, I don't know, send a new thread of an email and summarize the issue instead of just forward. What do you think? You know, people don't need to go through everything. Summarize. Use the right side of your brain a little bit, right? I mean, I know it's hard for us, but it does help. Consider the audience. And for the love of God with the acronyms, you know, I mean, we think everybody speaks our language. They don't. You know, the business does not necessarily speak our language, so spell things out. It really goes a long way in helping their eyes not to glaze over, right? So keep it simple, right? That's my advice there for better communication and building those relationships. So Jim, you often manage some difficult but important conversations centered around security, right? These are tough ones. I mean, technology is tough, but sometimes security can be even tougher, right? I think we see shaking heads, so we're on the right track. That's how that works. How do you reconcile zero trust and collaboration with your business partners?
So the only thing I can say that is less popular than security to work on is Iran counterintelligence. Boy, you want to talk about a buzzkill, say, I'm here to talk about insider threat. So, but I had a mentor who used to say repetition is the key to learning. So I actually want to build on something each of you have said before I address that. We are all in this field, in IT, because we care about it, because many of us are passionate about that. Letting your customer, letting your business partner sense your passion, sense that you're excited about what you're doing is good. Lapsing into acronyms is not. And to your point, Grace, when you'd say, it's not only acronyms, it's shorthand. And zero trust is one of those terms that I'm old school enough to say it's old wine in new bottles. It's a little bit of what we used to call role-based access control or need to know and segmentation of networks. But Thank you, Forrester, for gifting us with this term. You're dealing with customers who are in the public sector. They're in positions of public trust. Some of them may even have security clearances. And then put yourself in my shoes. You come in and say, I want to talk to you about our zero trust operations. The sense of that term for those of us who are practitioners, where we know it's about saying access is no longer based on your location, all the attributes that come with that are not the Anglo-Saxon meaning of the term. It's not even an acronym problem. We literally have an educational struggle we have to overcome. So first we have to explain to them what we mean, or we have to resist, if we can, the temptation to use our shorthand, which goes beyond acronyms. Part of it is explain the benefits of something to people, because when they hear a term like zero trust, they think of Orwellian Big Brother and surveillance, and if you actually say no, this is a way to allow you to connect. We did this pivot from in the office to remote. Now we're in this hybrid situation, but if you use an operating principle like this, we can do work from anywhere. We can connect people, data, devices, compute resources, no matter where any of them are. That's empowering, that's transformational. Yes, we call the operating principle for that zero trust, but you're moving the conversation to the positive. So show people the value in something. Security has this image of being Dr. No. We get brought in at the last minute and nope, you can't do that. Change it up. And part of this is by having that partnership happen earlier in the conversation.
So how do you demonstrate the value of the very technical services that you provide to some not so technical customers?
So you actually hit on a couple of the key things, Grace. And again, I did cyber threat intelligence sharing. If you want to talk about how people share information, yes, it's between institutions, but more importantly, it's between individuals. And that's based on their interaction. First time somebody calls you, you're going to hold them at arm's length. And then over time, to your point of picking up the phone, you build up relationships of trust. So part of it is you have to be involved and participatory from the early stages to actually make this work. You want to avoid getting brought in at the last minute. People talk about we do this by exchange of hostages. I embed my people in the mission elements. That's one way to do it at a very high level. You collaborate between the CISO, the CIO, literally you have an open door to each other. There are different ways to do it, but it's got to be built over time. And, to your point, it's relationships between people, and those don't just come out of the ether. Those get built up over time. And it's by basically being that good partner, that Patrick Swayze nice person.
Absolutely. So Joe, how has the pandemic changed that business IT relationship from your perspective and your agency?
Yeah, so I think, like everything else, COVID-19 upended the world, right? And it forced overnight, if IT didn't have a seat at the table, IT was everything we did, right? We needed to log on to WebEx, we needed to get Zooms, we needed to have everyone have laptops and cameras. And for our workforce of 400 people, it meant moving to the virtual environment. Some people were still in person, we do fingerprint analysis, other things. But overnight, 85% of the workforce had to go overseas, which had a few different benefits. One is it put us in a position where we had to, if we didn't already have a good relationship with ITS, have to improve. And so we had to become more intentional and deliberate about our conversation with ITS on everything from what do we need on the equipment side to what are some of those solutions that are going to help us work better in the telecommuting environment. And it got so good that we now, have adopted a telecommuting policy that's permanent with our unions, and it's been a huge benefit to our workforce. So when you talk about recruiting and retention, it led to us to, this relationship led to us to having a better and more engaged workforce over the last 2 years. I think it also allowed us to start to take some of the language that you used and some of the acronyms and become more familiar with them. And so now we kind of internally talk about, okay, we want to do this IT project. Who's going to be the driver? Who's the passenger? Is ITS going to drive this for us because they've got all the expertise and we'll just be the passenger kind of along for the ride, which works in some of the solutions? Or are we going to have to be the driver and we want ITS to be the passenger? Or are we both, do we both have a hand on the wheel?
And make sure everybody knows who's
Exactly.
who, right?
So that comes back to, communication, managing expectations, and then thinking a lot about the problem and the solution. And I think we've both ITS and our agency have gotten a lot more adept at that because of the pandemic, because we had to get forced into this crisis mode of identifying problems and developing solutions overnight. So I hope that we maintain that. That's the biggest risk.
Absolutely. And with so many problems and solutions needed today, how does your agency prioritize the work for ITS?
A lot of talking. So we talk internally.
Is that communication again?
Yeah, we talk internally because we have to manage 12 different program areas who all think that their thing is the most, why are we not dedicating all of our agency's resources to this? And then we, at the exec level of our agency, have to talk through, okay, we all have finite time, effort, energy, bandwidth, so what do we think? And then we have pre-calls every month with ITS, our portfolio, to say, here's kind of where we're going, or here's changes in priorities. And then we actually have a call with all the program areas. So, we're talking to ITS, we know they're available daily, and then we have a monthly pre-call, then we have a monthly, all program area call, and we sometimes have portfolio calls. So it is just constantly not letting it drop off the radar is how we maintain the prioritization of the projects that we need to get done for the state and for the citizens.
Absolutely. So Jim, if communication's the cornerstone of the role as an IT leader, how do we build on this momentum, right? We have the seat at the table, we're working together. Where do we go from here?
So part of it is that early involvement on an ongoing basis, and part of it is, and we've said this, but repetition is the key to learning, avoid the temptation to talk about the technology itself because it's interesting to you. Yes, platform as a service, yes, software-defined networking may be the way you're going to bring new capabilities to your users, but highlight that part of it. Show what is in it for them. Say, yes, it may change the way you log on, but really focus on the benefits. So you're in government, I was in government, we have carrots and sticks. People tend to want to use the carrot. You want to go with the incentive. So really try to show them what you are building as a capability and how it can affect and improve their ability to get the job done rather than the look at this new technology, isn't this cool? Because they're not in IT, they may not see it the same way.
Right, so you may need to change your communication style, right, to talk to your business partners differently than you may have talked to your IT colleagues.
Correct.
And I just want to build on that for a second because it gets back to the solution problem paradigm. But oftentimes what benefits, I'm a tourist in IT, right? Like I use the word end user services. I don't know what that means, but I know that it means it's the person who gave me my phone, which is,
See, you do know what it
so
means.
a little bit. But I also don't mind if the IT person is a tourist in the criminal justice space. If Jeff called me and said, hey, we've got this new survey technology, and I think it'd be great because I know you oftentimes are working with police chiefs and sheriffs, let me do a demo for you. Great, awesome. Like I want to know that they're also familiar in getting to know our business and language because that's where that overlap in the Venn diagram is where we're going to make progress.
So I started in IT at the Office of Mental Health, and my very first supervisor said to me very early on, hey, you want to go to a facility? The Office of Mental Health runs the state-run mental health facilities. And I'm like, we work in IT, And he goes, no, you need to see what we do. This is what we do. He said, so pick one. I'm like, oh, there's one in New York City. That sounds good. So next thing you know, I'm on a train to New York City going to the facility. And it was one of the best things I ever did because I started off knowing what we do isn't the box under the desk, right? It's not the code. It's not the data center, as impressive as that is, right? What is the business? We're just a support function, right? And we need to learn that. And depending on the agency you support, it's going to be a very different, or business you support. It could be finance, it could be parks, it could be health, it could be anything, right? And we do need to both learn and meet at the middle of that bridge, right? So most organizational breakdowns can be directly related to poor communications. We've talked about how to do it well. You know, when there's a real breakdown, I think sometimes we can look back and say, you know, something went wrong here, right? We weren't communicating. So Jim, what tactics do you use to ensure positive and productive communications? How do you keep it positive?
I mean,
Keep it
I think
constructive?
it's the interaction, because even if it's a bad news story, nobody likes to be blindsided, or no one wants to find that they're working on a different set of assumptions. So even if you're not hiding the ball from someone, it's easy, especially within a large bureaucracy, for the stovepipes to reemerge and for people to literally just focus on their own vision of the problem. It's the blind man and the elephant. So keeping that early collaboration is a way to avoid those surprises, because at least if something's going badly, you all recognize it, you all have a chance to fix it, rather than some critical path part going off the rails, the finger pointing happens. So it really comes down to, you know, this is not rocket science, it's not computer science. A lot of it really is the golden rule. It's the kind of things you learned in kindergarten about collaborating with each other on an ongoing basis.
Play nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. Any final thoughts, Joe, on that relationship and communication?
Yeah, I think, you know, coming back from the pandemic, right, I'm looking for myself in the Zoom box, like if this feels,
Right.
you know, foreign now. But I think we need to guard against going back to the way things were, right? So it's easy for us right now, because we've been living in the digital domain, to pop up WebEx or Zoom or Teams, but that's going to change as we get to a more hybrid work environment. And so in the same way that before the pandemic we had open door, you know, policy, stop in, we need to make sure that we are intentional about having that open door policy in this new hybrid world, because it would be to all of our detriment if we were just to go back to the way the world was in 2019. We would lose all of the virtualization of not only the work we do in telecommuting space, but also the virtualization of services. And you know, we've demonstrated now that before we were going to have to build a new COOP location, continuity of operations. We've eliminated that from our budget and our planning, because we can realize we can do that work remotely. And so to us, the most resilient way is we just all go home and we can do the work at home. So it saves time, effort, and energy to kind of look at the success of where we are, take this moment in time while we're in this, you know, recovery phase, to make sure we don't lose any steps.
Absolutely, Jim.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with Joe. I think the extra challenge is it's not binary, because not everybody's coming back. So yes, you're going to want the open door policy, but you have to recognize that you're going to have some portion of the workforce that are permanently remote. So what do we have to have? Habitual office hours as well. Some way to try to keep the playing field level between those who have come back and those who come back part of the time and those who never will.
Absolutely. So I'll just leave you with the final thoughts of keeping things simple. You know, be nice, answer the phone, lose the acronyms, right? Those are things I think if we do those, we can make those small changes to build that communication and build stronger relationships on both sides. So thank you. Thanks for having us.